When we lived close to nature, and there were very few human beings on this planet, the world was a working ecosystem in which everybody had a share.
It seems to me safer to show things that I know to be truthful and factual, and allow people to make up their own mind about the moralities of this thing, or indeed the theology of this thing.
What do you think happens when we die?
Oh, I think nothing happens, to be truthful.
At 100 years of age, there's no question that Sir David Attenborough has spent time reflecting on life and on death. From his first television appearance on Zoo Quest to the world-renowned planet Earth, his career has become one of the most celebrated in broadcasting history. Yet for all the wonder he's brought to the screen, one question has continued to follow him. If the world is truly as magnificent as he portrays it, why has he never credited a creator?
Why can't you just say, this is all so wonderful and so beautiful, therefore there must have been a designer, therefore there must be a God? Because you do exhibit awe, but it's not a religious awe that you are showing, is it? I mean, how do you...
Isn't it?
Well, is it religious? Do you want to use the word religious about it?
No, I shrink from the word, but I wouldn't say that meant necessarily that that demonstrated that God didn't exist. On the contrary.
But the intelligent, because what you're being nudged towards is an intelligent...
That's a different thing. I have no quarrel with basic fundamental religious attitudes. If I have a quarrel about the literal interpretation of texts, fundamentalism, I have a quarrel about people who think that the book of Genesis is literally true. And my argument to dealing with that is 150 years ago, people living in Britain might think that was the only account of creation. But we now know that societies all around the world each have their own account. Each has felt the necessity to explain why it is that they, human beings, are here. Now, all these accounts differ. If you go to Thailand, they believe there was, in the first beginning of creation, there was a sea of milk, there was a huge snake in it, and there were demons pulling it and churning it, and when the curds came out, they told the human being. If you go to the Aboriginals, they believe that the human beings were coughed up by a giant snake which became a rainbow in the sky. You can produce hundreds of them. How are you to choose them? Which is correct? If you say, I'm only going to believe the one that my mother told me when I was brought up at my mother's knee, and I'm not going to question anything else, well, then that's up to you. But if you take a more general view and say, okay, you can't all be right, there is actually an answer which you can look in the rocks and the animals themselves. And the interesting thing about that is that it's all the same. No matter where you come from, whether you're an Australian or Aboriginal or European or whatever, then that's the one I go for. It's funny that the people when they say that this is evidence of Almighty, always quote beautiful things. They always quote orchids and hummingbirds and butterflies and roses. But I always have to think too of a little boy sitting on the banks of a river in West Africa who has a worm boring through his eyeball, turning him blind before he is 5 years old. And I replied, say, well, presumably the God you speak about created the worm as well. And now I find that baffling to credit a merciful God, that action, and therefore it seems to me safer to show things that I know to be truthful and factual, and allow people to make up their own mind about the moralities of this thing, or indeed the theology of this thing. I can't help thinking of when I have, for example, taken off the top of a termite hill, and I've seen termites in there, all busying about building walls, looking after the queen, caring for the pupae, clearing the nest, all busy about it as well. Then they're all blind, and they haven't the faintest idea that I am there watching what they're doing, because they don't have those sense organisms which would allow them to know that. And I do sometimes feel that maybe I'm lacking in some sense organ, and I don't know whether there's anybody else involved in all this sort of thing. And it's a very confident thing to say that I'm absolutely sure that there's nothing in this world that I don't have the sense organs to appreciate. That would be my position.
While David Attenborough remains open-minded on the question of whether God exists, his perspective on morality is far more defined. When he speaks about the natural world and humanity's role in protecting it, one issue rises above all others, one he has openly tied to evil.
The great evil is waste. You know, this world is a hugely rich, productive situation. There's plenty for everybody if we don't waste it. And it's the waste that goes on that is so appalling. I mean, I remember during the war, we heard stories of American, we were all starving, we heard stories of American ordering huge steaks and then actually nibbling the end of it and stubbing their cigarettes out on the remainder. And that sort of gross wastefulness is the evil. If we stop wasting things, there's plenty for everybody.
We can simply overcome this issue by living closer to nature, by living off the things we need rather than exploiting the resources we don't.
If you help the natural world, the world becomes a better place for everybody. Understanding the natural world and the way it works is crucially important. When we live, all of us, when we live close to nature, and there were very few human beings on this planet, we're living close to nature, the world was a working ecosystem in which everybody had a share. And I think we can return in that direction. I'm not suggesting we put the clock back. You can't put the clock back. But you can see what is important in the world, what is important that all human beings should have. And that means that those that have a great deal perhaps will have a little less, and those that have very little can have a little more. And in that process, the natural world will begin to flourish again as it once did.